There are two things that affect the smoothness of the footage you take: the movement of the gimbal and the movement of the aircraft itself. Both have an enormous impact, so today I'm talking about how to smooth it all out. Hello. So there are two ways of controlling the movement of the gimbal and the aircraft itself. You can use either the intelligent flight modes, or you can actually adjust the settings yourself. And today I'm going to be going through how you can make those adjustments to suit your particular style of flying. First off, the gimbal settings. There's only two settings that you want to be changing here. The gimbal pitch speed, and they used to call it the gimbal start-stop buffer. They've actually changed it now to gimbal pitch smoothing, which actually does reflect pretty much what it does. So to access those, you need to access it through the DJI Go 4 app. You take... Thank you, Ted. So to access those, you just go to the three dots on the right hand side. The sixth symbol down is the gimbal. Then you take the second option, which is camera gimbal advanced settings. As you can see, as said, there's three settings, but we're only interested in two of them. The max gimbal pitch speed. This defaults to 20, and as I said, it controls how fast your gimbal goes up and down. So if I just do that now, you can see it's quite a sharp, jerky movement. So I more than halve that. If I knock that down to around 7 or 8, really, I'm trying to get to. 9 will do, I suppose. There we go. Okay, do that on 8. That's full wheel left, and you can see how much smoother that gimbal movement is. So the second option is the gimbal pitch smoothing. As I said, they used to call it the stop-start buffer. This is like a buffer. It slows down the beginning and the end of the pitch movement. So in actual fact, a little bit more is good here. So the default is 15, but I would knock it up to around 20, 25. Again, now if I do full wheel lock, you can see how it slowly starts and it carries on for a bit. So maybe 27 is a bit too high. 20. You see it's a much smoother start. When you let go, it carries on and comes to a slow stop. So have a practice with that and decide which setting is best for you. Just a point on the last item, the extended gimbal tilt limit, leave that switched off. All that actually allows the gimbal to do if you turn it on is for it to extend above 90 degrees by about another 15 degrees or so. In practice, all that will happen is that you will be overshooting the horizon and you'll get plenty of shots with the propellers creeping in at the top. It's not that much use for everyday flying, so I'd leave that switched off. So the second main area of adjustments you can make are how the stick inputs that you control on the remote control will actually be reflected in the movement of the drone. These settings are really easy to amend, but do have a huge impact on how jerky or smooth your video will end up. So to access them, again, you simply go to the three dots. This time you take the top symbol, the quad symbol at the top. Scroll down to advanced settings. And what you want is the EXP settings. These set the linear relationship between how much you have to move your stick to how much output you get in response. In all three cases, you want less output for more input, which simply increases the level of control you'll have on the sticks. So let's take the first setting, throttle up and down. This simply controls how fast the altitude is going to change, i.e. your left stick pushed forward or backwards. This is actually probably the least important of the three for smoothness, so I leave mine at the default setting of 40. It's the next two that actually have the greatest input on your smoothness. The rotate left or right is otherwise known as yaw, and this will adjust how fast the rotation starts as you start to move the stick. It's the equivalent of your left stick, left-right movement. I have to say, this is the single biggest cause of jerky videos. You want to drop this value right down to around 0.20 or even 0.15. This will slow the start of any rotation right down, as you see in this clip here. Lastly, you have the forward, right, backwards, left, which simply controls the actual position of your drone going forwards or backwards. Again, it's not quite as important as the rotate input, but it's still a setting you want to reduce and smooth out. So again, I set mine round to about 20. There's one last setting that I'm not really sure why DJI don't include it in the same screen, to be honest. It's known as the Yaw Endpoint. Go back a step and go into Sensitivity. Here you can see attitude and brake. You don't want to be touching those at all. Braking distance is not something you want to mess about with too much. Attitude simply limits the pitch. Again, that will simply slow you down when it's breezy. It's not something you want to be changing today. Remember, yaw is the rotation of the drone. So the yaw endpoint controls how fast ultimately the rotation will take place. So if you have the value quite high, then the rotation will happen very quickly. If you take it down low to say about 50, then as you can see, the rotation is far more measured and far smoother. So even though the default is 100, I set mine to 50. Again, it's a really useful setting. So that's how you set the settings yourself, and it's really useful to know what each setting is actually doing and how it's affecting the flight and movement of your aircraft. But DJI do give you a couple of pre-programmed intelligent flight modes that can do a lot of this work for you. These are really easy to access. All you've got to do is tap the little remote control symbol on the left hand side there. First mode is cinematic mode. All that's actually doing is making similar changes to the ones I've just gone through. The advantage of doing it yourself is that you can actually fine tune those changes as you want. The second is tripod mode. Now this is actually a really useful little mode. It slows things right down to a walking pace. It's very useful if you're up close to people or trees, and it's an easy way to control things when you don't have much room or you want a really slow controlled movement. So that's about it. Hopefully you found that quite useful. I do prefer to adjust the settings myself so you can fine tune exactly how you want it to behave. Should point out, I was using the Mavic Air, but everything I've pointed out today is also available on the Mavic Pro as well. Out of all of that, I'd say the single most important setting is the EXP, the rotation setting, the left-right setting. But as ever, have a play with it and see what works for you. So that's all for today. No doubt I'll be catching up with you soon, so click the subscribe, tick the little bell, and as ever, have fun, happy flying.